All right, so we already looked at if statements before, but now we're going to look at a little bit more complex version of an if statement by looking at the if else statement. So this is a UML graphical description of the if and else statement. So basically, what happens here is this if will check for a condition. If that condition is true, it will go ahead and execute the statements that are in between the brace of the if. That's nothing new to us. The caveat or the change here with the else statement after this is if the condition is false, so it doesn't evaluate to true, then it'll do this instead. So basically now what we're doing is we're going to do one or these two statements here. It just depends on whether this is true or not. If this is true, it'll do this statement, then skip this else. If this is false, it'll skip this statement and then do whatever these statements are. So we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at it. But before we get too far, if you'd like the code for this, here's the replit reposit. Obviously, you can go ahead and fork your own copy of it, or you can copy and paste it and put it in your IDE. This link is also in the description of the video. So let's take another look at this because I'm actually going to add another layer to this. I'm not just going to stop at the else. I'm also going to add the keywords else if. So let's take a pseudocode look at this structure. So if you like hamburgers, so if that condition evaluates to true, then we are going to go to White Castle. We're going to skip the rest of these and then do whatever's after this code, if there is anything else after that code. However, if you don't like hamburgers, let's say that evaluates the false, we'll skip and ask, well, do you like tacos? So else if will also check the next one in line. If you like tacos, great, we're going to Taco Bell's. We'll skip this and we'll move on. All right. However, let's start at the top again. If you like hamburgers is false, you don't like hamburgers, then I'll ask, well, do you like tacos? And if you don't like tacos, well, then this is our last resort. We're going to automatically do cook at home. So the difference here is if that checks for a condition, else if will check for this condition only if the first if is false, and then else would say, hey, if your if is false and your else if is false, then I'm just going to go into this else. Now, it is worthy to note that you can do else if as many times as you want. You could have 15 conditions you're checking for if you really wanted to. And we'll go ahead and we'll kind of apply it to some of the old code we've done already. So let's go ahead and take a look at that code. And here we are in the repository, and we're going to go ahead and review real quickly what this code is. We create a scanner to accept input. We ask the user for A for multiplication, or I'm sorry, A for addition, for multiplication, enter B, and Q to quit. And we have our while loop that checks for that use as long as it's not Q. We'll go ahead and do whatever's in here, so forth and so on. So what we will do is we will change this if-else structure to, actually we'll add in, all right, so if the user puts in, like, let's go ahead and run this real quick and take a look at something we haven't noticed previously, or I at least haven't mentioned. The prompt reads, for addition, enter A, for multiplication, enter B, and to quit, enter Q. What we haven't talked about is the fact that this program could allow for anything. Let's, for example, X. And then it says for addition, enter A, for multiplication, enter B, to quit, enter Q. So if I put in C, it brings me back to this. It's not correcting the user. So let's create a situation where if the user is not putting in A, B, or Q, let's give them a message saying, sorry, you have to select at least A, B, or Q. All right. So let's go ahead and change this structure. If the user enters A, else if the user enters B, else if the user enters Q, and then finally, else. Let's go ahead and put a system.out.println in between the braces of that else. Sorry, please enter A, B, or Q. And let's go ahead and comment these braces. All right, so now let's see how this changes. Go ahead and run this. And now it prompts me, so A, B, or Q. If I put in C, sorry, please enter A, B, or Q. For addition, enter A. For multiplication, enter B. And to quit, enter Q. All right, so X again. So now, because it's evaluated all of those things, A, B, and Q, and it was none of those, it automatically goes to that else and says, okay, then I'm going to do this. All right, so if I go ahead and I say B, it correctly says that I chose multiplication, and then it prompts me again. So we're starting to get to a program that allows for multiple user experiences. It allows them to do one thing or another, has multiple paths, and catches all. So if the user doesn't do what we expect them to, we can catch that and kind of redirect them to hopefully pick something correct. And then if I hit Q, the program ends. So that is your very brief introduction to the expanded version of an if. Again, an if and an else will do this or that. An if, else, if allows us to check a couple things. So we said, hey, if you like hamburgers, do this. Else, if you like tacos, do this. Else, if it's none of those, do this, right? And we could, if we wanted to, just to expand on it, we could add another else if to this and say else if you like Coney dogs. Let's go to National Coney. And of course, close that brace, right? So now we have this situation. So now whatever the user inputs, right? Is it hamburgers? No. Okay, then we'll skip this line of code. Is it tacos? No. All right, let's skip this. Is it Coney dogs? Yeah. All right, great. We'll execute this and we'll skip the else. All right. So understanding the flow of this is really important. I encourage you to create a situation to try to create an if, else, if, and finally else structure, so you can sort of control the flow. It could be mathematical, it could be just simple input, kind of like what I did. Definitely familiarize yourself with it and give it some practice.